We are not alone. You are watching Contact TV with your hosts, Leslie Mitchell-Clark
and Wes Roberts,
exploring ufology, metaphysics, and beyond with the world's foremost experts. We are not alone. And welcome to another episode of Contact TV. In fact, this is the first episode of 2020, and we all hope in our world, all good-feeling people, that this will be a year of improved life for everyone. So that's what we're all hoping, without any agenda. Just let us come together in love and make this a better world. So that's what's going on, and we are so excited to be back. Let me say hello to my co-host, Wes Roberts. Wes, how are you doing?
Hey, Leslie, I'm well. And folks, if you're seeing a teensy little Wes, it's not because I shrunk. Because we have video issues, but we'll see. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm actually seeing a teensy little me, which I just thought I took the pill that said this one makes you smaller. I don't. Thanks for remembering. Oh my goodness. Well, before we carry on any further, I must introduce our wonderful guest. We've been trying to get her on for some time, and I'm so happy that she's here with us. Shelly McConville wears a lot of different hats. She is a psychic medium. She is the founder and leader of an extremely prominent and professional spirit investigation group. She is a teacher, a metaphysician, and more. So we are so pleased to welcome to our program this evening, Shelly McConville. Shelly, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me on. It's wonderful.
For sure.
And Shelly, I wonder, and I actually don't know this about you, I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about your own personal awareness that you had psychic abilities. Did this happen as a child? Is there a lineage in your family?
Well, my first experience, Leslie, was when I was 8 years old. My grandfather had just passed. And 3 days after his funeral, I got woken up in the middle of the night, him standing at the end of my bed, all dressed in white with a big smile on his face. And of course, I was petrified. And I do remember hiding under the covers. So that was my very first experience. But we actually have a very long lineage of mediumship and psychic abilities in my family, because I'm Irish on both sides. And on my mom's side of the family, my mother did, my grandmother did, my uncle did. Many of my siblings have it, and also many cousins.
Boy, it sounds quite a bit like both Wes's and my family. I'm like yourself, about 3/4 Irish, and Wes as well. Wes even has some also some Native Canadian, and a lot of people with psychic abilities. So, do you think that we are incarnating, all of us that are like-minded, shall we say, like-gifted? Do you think we are congregating on planet Earth at this time for a particular purpose?
I myself, which I was told many years ago, which I was going to get into afterwards, that we need to come together as a collective, as light workers, because I think the planet is in trouble. And I think mankind and the animals and Mother Earth, we need to work together so that we can basically stop everything's kind of getting destroyed, right? So I think we need to come together as a collective whole to prevent that from happening.
Mm-hmm. And tell us a little bit about your own journey after the age of 8. Did you become spiritually aware then, do you feel, or was it more of a process over the years?
Well, after that experience when I was 8 years old, I kind of shut it down because it scared me, right? But I do remember as a teenager and in my early 20s, doing the typical thing, getting your tarot cards read, your tea leaves, going to psychic fairs. And I actually tried a Ouija board a number of times too. But now that I know about Ouija boards, I wouldn't touch them. And then in my 30s, I was lucky enough to be taught by 3 great teachers in the Barrie area. So I did that for 10 years, and they really helped me develop my abilities and my connection to spirit. And after that, I felt I wanted to share my knowledge and experience with others, and I've taught classes ever since then.
Oh, marvelous. And Shelly, tell me and Wes and our listening audience, I know that you are recently rebranding your ghost investigation group, if that's the proper word. And tell us a little bit about, first of all, what drove you to found initially the Durham Ghost Hunters.
Well, I actually had 2 groups. I had the Ghost Hunters and Paranormal Experiences of York Region, and I also had the Durham one too. So whenever we had events, I invited both groups to actually participate. The reason why I started to do that is I've always been fascinated with the paranormal. And I had another group a number of years ago where we started doing paranormal investigations. And because I love history and I like working with spirit, I thought that I would really focus on that for a number of years. So that's why I started the 2 groups. But I was working full-time before, and it was more part-time. And then now that I'm actually retired, now I can focus on that full-time.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I must also say one of the very interesting and, from my opinion, excellent aspects of your investigations is it's not a technical festival. I mean, it's these are mediumistic, spirit-based investigations where you go in with nothing but a flashlight and a camera, I think.
That's correct. Because I want them to use their intuitive abilities. Because I know there are some groups that use all the gadgets and all that, but I think you get a better connection and you get a truer picture when you're actually communicating with the spirits.
Indeed, indeed. Can you tell us a story or two about some of the more interesting things that have happened during spirit investigations?
How long do you have, Leslie? I got lots of stories. Lots of stories.
Well, this might be the first show of many. Who knows?
Okay, so I'll tell you about my very first experience that we actually did a paranormal investigation. This was when I was still learning. This was under one of my teachers. And one of the girls that actually learned with me, she was having a Halloween party. And I guess she was talking to her friend who had a barn in Stouffville. And apparently there was a lot of activity in the barn. So before we actually went to the party, a group of us actually went to the barn. And what I always tell people, as light workers or mediums, we give off a light. We're bright, like we shine, right? So whenever we congregate, the spirits come from all over because we really shine from quite a distance. So when we got to the barn was literally full. I had never seen so many spirits in all my life. It was phenomenal. And when we went upstairs, we actually have pictures and everything that we took in the barn. I've never seen so many orbs in all my life. And it was interesting because when we first got there, one of the girls that came, she's an actual channeler. Do you know what a channeler is?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so she was a channeler and a bunch of us were walking around. There was animals in the barn. There was horses and dogs and everything else. And we were picking up on the spirits because there were so many there. All of a sudden, the horses started banging the stall and kicking the stall. The dogs started going around in a circle like this. And all of a sudden, my friend who's a channeler, this negative energy, we call them its because you don't want to give them power. This it jumped into her and all of a sudden her voice changed and it became very sinister and it started to laugh, right? And we're all kind of like, oh my God, what's going on here, right? And luckily my teacher was there. He basically dealt with it and got rid of it. But the funny thing is the animals knew way before we did and they were starting to act out because this entity had stepped in and they're very sensitive animals are, right? Mm-hmm. And they knew way before we did. So that was gone, which was good, but it kind of took everybody back, right? So so then we went upstairs in the barn and we picked up on a number of spirits. Actually, we picked up on a bunch of children. I guess at one point in the barn, which I'm sure that happened a lot, kids would be playing, right? Because there was hay and everything up there. Mm-hmm. And there was a rope that you could actually swing out because the barn door was open. And I guess this little girl was playing and the rope got caught around her and actually hung her. And
oh my God.
Yeah. she actually stepped forward, right? And she basically presented herself to us. And she basically told us that she was playing in the barn with the kids. And unfortunately, the rope got caught and she hung, right? So we actually picked up on a lot of spirits there. And I remember my main objective as a light worker when I do these investigations or any time I work with spirit is there's a lot of spirits that are kind of walking the earth. Some don't realize that they've died, or some are just stuck here. So my main job as a light worker is to cross them over. And that's what we did at the end of the night. There was so many spirits, both of you, it was amazing. It was like phenomenal. It must have taken about an hour to cross them all over. There were so many, they were lined up like you wouldn't believe. It was phenomenal to see. It was great.
Oh my goodness. It almost makes you wonder if that space wasn't some type of a vortice, some type of a, an aperture that made it easier to cross all those people over, or, who knows? That was quite a congregation of people.
It was, yeah, it was a lot. And it's funny too, because almost everywhere that we go when we do paranormal investigations, like I said, because we're a beacon of light, they come for miles, right? Because they know that we can help them because we do cross them over, right? So there is, what I started to do in some of the investigations, depending on the building, is I only allow the spirits that are associated with the specific building at the beginning, because I want people to pick up on the history and the spirits that were associated with the buildings. And then at the end of the night, I allow all the other spirits outside to come forward, and then we cross them all over at the end of the night.
Ah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Wes, you must have a few questions, I'm sure, for Shelly.
I got lots of stories, guys. Don't worry.
Well, what I would like to do is mention to your websites to begin with, and then after that I have a question about photography, because I was in a psychic research institute for a number of years, and I had some interesting experiences, and I'll mention one of them briefly. So your main website is spiritualandparanormalconnections.com, right?
That's correct, yes.
And Facebook group is the same name, basically, Spiritual and Paranormal Connection, right? Connections. Okay, yes. Sorry about that. So the question about photography, when I was involved in this institute, I was still using a 35 mil. There were no digital cameras. So you can, back in the dinosaur age, right? Anyway, we went to a haunted house in the Riverdale area of Toronto, and absolutely textbook. My camera stopped working the moment I tried to take a photograph, and started working after we left. So have you encountered any of that kind of thing?
Many times. And that's because spirit, they drain the energy of the electronics, right? That happens a lot. Because you have to understand,
even with digital.
Yes, because you have to understand spirit is made up of spirit is made up of energy, and all those electronics are also energy too, right? And what usually happens is very easy for spirit to actually use the technology to actually communicate with us. They can actually drain it too, but they can also communicate with us. They can either turn on your TV, shut it off, turn on the radio, turn on your computer, many different things, because it's very easy for them to travel, because it is energy, right? And because they're made up of energy, it's very easy to connect. So they actually are around us a lot, and they do give you signs by using the technology. But they can bring it too.
Shelly, have you ever thank you, Shelly. Have you ever experimented with EVPs, electro voice phenomena?
No, because I want my group to use their intuitive abilities. The only thing I allow them to bring in is a regular camera just to take a few pictures, but I don't want them to focus on the technology. I want them to communicate with the spirits. Because that's why they're there, right? As far as I'm concerned anyways.
Now, EVP is a great thing. I've tried endlessly with no success. But I've listened to many of the clips, and they're stunning. You've probably heard some too, right?
Yes, I have. Yes.
But you know, I think like anything, it's very important to use protection, and because EVP collection can be a little bit like the Ouija board in the sense that it's kind of opening the door to whatever earthbound spirits there happen to be. But you know, that being said, as long as you're using protection, sometimes there are intelligent haunts where there are specific messages, but you know, often there are, you know, as Dan Aykroyd would say, free repeaters, residual haunts,
Yes.
where you know,
Yes.
where really you're just hearing a kind of an imprint, you know, the stone tape theory. So, but yes, it's fascinating. Now, Shelley, I remember you mentioned that that even within the scope of cameras, the ones that actually work the best, if you can find them, are like the disposable cameras, like you would use at a wedding or whatever.
Can you actually still find them?
You can, but they have to fall off a truck in Chinatown.
It's funny because we did an investigation at a house in Stouffville, and one of the girls had like an old-fashioned camera, and they took the best pictures. We have amazing pictures from that camera, but unfortunately it's broken now. But it had none of the gadgets, nothing on it, just a plain camera, and she got amazing pictures.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think if they want to be seen, they're going to be seen, probably no matter what, you know, device you happen to be using. How are Polaroids? There's another archaic sort of format, which I think is having a little bit of a resurgence. But have you ever experimented with using Polaroids, Shelley?
No, I wasn't into this when I think Polaroids were around. The Polaroids have been
they're
going
back.
about 20 or 30 years, haven't they?
Yeah,
It
the,
was, but it's back.
it's
Oh,
back,
really?
believe it or not. I think that probably the only, there have been many, many interesting spirit photographs done with Polaroid, but with Polaroid developing outside the camera, it's always very hard to eliminate for sure any interference
Yes, I
with the
agree.
evidence,
Yeah.
if you will. So, you know, Polaroids, it would have to be completely under supervised condition, but I have seen some amazing things on Polaroid. I really have.
Yeah, we have some amazing pictures throughout the years too. One house that we did in Stouffville, there was a major it in the basement there, and we basically had to confront that to get it to come out. And my one friend, who's a channeler again, she was there. It jumped into her, and basically I had to get rid of it. It took quite a while, but we were able to get rid of it. It was very powerful. But it's funny, in the family room where this was happening, there was only one candle going, and one of the girls took a picture, and we developed a picture, and you would not believe, there's different colored lights going through the picture, orbs that are stretched out, like it's weird. And there was only one candle in the room going, nothing else. But it's a phenomenal picture. It's amazing.
Wow.
Go ahead. If you have something, I do too, whenever you're
No,
ready.
go ahead, Wes, please.
I don't know how much you want to talk about this, but I knew a fellow, we're not really connected anymore, that did spirit removal from people. I'm just curious to know, can you tell us how you do that?
Okay, so what do you mean by spirit removal? Like from a room or from a person?
Well, let's say from a room, as you were talking about. Let's stick with that.
Okay, not all spirits are bad. Okay, most of the time they're good. There's only a few occasions in the number of years I've been doing that there is negative energy, but you are going to be tested, right? So just say like there's spirits that are kind of lost or wandering the earth that haven't crossed over. Basically what I do is I communicate with them, and I explain to them the process of we're going to help them, that they're not going to be alone anymore. They don't need to be afraid. They don't need to be scared, because a lot of them don't understand it, right? And I tell them that we're going to cross them over to the white light, which is heaven or whatever you want to call it. And I tell them there's family members and friends that are going to be there to greet them. And it's amazing to experience, because when they actually do cross over to the white light, there's all kinds of family members and friends there waiting for them. It's amazing. And as soon as they get there, they're so happy because they keep thanking us. You know, they say, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, right? Like they're really, really happy. And some of them, they don't even wait. Some of them, they know what we do and they want to go right away. But that's usually at the beginning of the night. Usually have to explain them that we're here, we're checking out this place. and we're going to do it at the end of the night, but we always do, right?
Mhm.
It's an amazing experience.
Thank you for sharing that.
In your process, Shelly, of spirit rescue, which I love what you're doing and how you do it. Have you ever had an entity, a benign entity, not necessarily with any negative intent, but have you ever had an entity sort of follow you home from a haunted location?
Yes, at the beginning I did. And then I've learned from experience that I have to surround my car with white light, and I have to surround myself plus my whole house before I go, because that happens to me on a regular basis. Because if I don't, then in the middle of the night, they're knocking on my door, my window, my walls, and everything. So it happens on a regular basis. But in investigations, yes, that can happen, but we use a lot of the white light.
A lot of protection.
Yes, definitely.
Fantastic. And Shelly, do you think that that you did this kind of work in past lives, if you in fact believe in the past life I guess philosophy? Do you think that you've been a spiritual practitioner in many lifetimes?
I actually teach past lives in my classes, and I've actually had it done on myself. I've been told I've had 85 past lives, but there's a constant theme in all my past lives. I was either a healer or a teacher, which is what I'm doing now, both of these, right? So many, many times it's the same two things through many of my past lives. So yes, I have.
Oh, excellent.
So
Go ahead,
Leslie also offers interlife hypnosis, which I've done with her once. Have you gone through that?
Well, I'm sorry, what's it called?
Interlife hypnosis.
What does that mean? Between lives?
Yes, we sometimes call it life between lives, and the great the great provocateur, the wonderful psychiatrist who developed the real technique that we use now is Michael Newton, and I'm sure you probably heard of him.
Yes.
So it's a slightly longer process than a past life regression. And I guess when Michael Newton was running his organization and teaching people, they would put these people under for, like 5 hours, which is insane. People become exhausted. Yeah, I don't know what could have, instigated that. It's just, I guess, the desire for knowledge. It's a very fascinating thing. And it does deal. The thing that I like the most about life between life explorations is that it really allows us to take responsibility and toss away any victimhood. Like, oh, woe is me, my mother didn't pay enough attention to me, my father wasn't there, and my sister was a bitch, and all of these things that we complain about. We have set these situations up, with broad strokes, I believe, albeit, but we are in soul groups, I believe, and we change roles, and sometimes one of the most unselfish things a soul can do is to assume a kind of a negative role in someone's life as a teaching experience, if both parties agree. And that happens too. So things are never, quite what they seem, and they're multi-layered. And I love the fact that someone can come in with a victim mentality and leave a life between life investigation, understanding that they made their choices.
I've actually taught a class on that, Leslie. And I've actually had it done on me also too, when I was actually with one of my teachers, and it was an amazing experience. It was really cool. If you want, I can talk a little bit about that.
Please do, please.
Yeah, talk about your experience, definitely.
Okay. Well, my very first experience, like I said, is when I was being taught by one of my teachers in Barrie. And I have a really strong connection to the Aboriginal beliefs and how they do their ceremonies and everything in this life here. And it's funny because in that past life, I actually experienced being in my mother's womb and then being born, and I was an Aboriginal warrior. And my grandfather was a shaman, and I remember him calling me over because he took me to this cave where they had done a lot of the carvings in the cave. And he said, this is our history. You have to remember this so that you can share it with others. And my father in that life, he was a shaman of the tribe, And when I grew up, I got married. And then when my father passed, I became the shaman and the chief of the tribe. And then it went forward till when I was going to take my last breath. I was in a teepee. I was lying down. A bunch of people were around me. They were playing the drums and the rattles, and they had different herbs and that burning. And I remember looking at all of them and just smiling. And I remember taking my last breath, because in that life I was called Gray Eagle. And when I took my last breath and I crossed over to the white light, I was riding a gray eagle as I went towards the white light, which I thought was really cool. Mm-hmm. And then the next life, what happened, I was in my mother's womb again. I was born, I was a little girl. And I remember walking with my dad, and this was in the early 1900s, because he had a Model T Ford, he just bought it. So he was taking my sister and myself out for a ride. And I remember the wind blowing, my hat going flying. And it was really cool. And growing up, I got married and I had kids. Next thing, I went forward. And then I was older, and I was in a hospital bed with, you know, the old wrought iron hospital beds. Mm-hmm. And my children and grandchildren were around me. My husband had passed. And I remember looking at them too. I knew my time was near, and smiling at them. They were talking to me and everything, and then closing my eyes and passing and going to the white light again. So I experienced two lives when I did that. And I also taught a class in that too, which was really cool.
Mm-hmm. 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 Fantastic. And Shelly, tell me about your students. What type of people are drawn to your classes? Do you find that that it's a wide variety of people? And is there more interest, do you think, now than there was, say, 5 years ago?
Oh yeah, when I've been teaching classes for 12 years, when I started, I was really the only one that was really doing it in the area. And now there's a lot of people that are doing, which is great, right? Because we need more light workers in the world, right? And a lot of my students, I would say probably the majority of them are probably 40 up to 65, I would think. Mm-hmm, younger mm-hmm. people, the millenniums and stuff like that, they're still trying to find their way and, you know, in life and everything right. else. Some right. of them do, but the majority no. It's more 40 and up, I would say. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's mainly women. There are a few men, but it's mainly women.
Well, that certainly makes a lot of sense, because, you know, there is a reality about the wise women. You know, I believe that when we pass menopause, that energy gets redirected into our perceptions and our metaphysical selves, and then we become capable of illuminations and knowledge that wasn't really that accessible mm-hmm. prior to that time. And you could say it's just a focus thing when you're busy with your kids and you're the husband or no husband or whatever. It's very difficult to even find the time to meditate, let alone pursue a spiritual path, and that's just the reality of it. But mm-hmm. I think that I was remembering I was fortunate enough to go on a wonderful investigation with Shelly and the group, and it was a reconstructed, well, not reconstructed is perhaps the wrong word, a organized village.
Yes, it was original buildings, but they were just put in one location.
Yes, and it was fascinating because so many people, including myself, were getting all this information simultaneously. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I've never really, because it was a pretty big group, I've never really experienced that. I know that we all went into a church location. We got mm-hmm. a lot of information there, and I said, fire, and like 5 or 6 other people immediately had the same reaction. Now, I never got a chance to talk to you in detail, but because you don't reveal anything, but in that church location, had there been a fire of any sort?
That I don't know, because usually what I do, Leslie, when I go into buildings, I usually ask that there's a staff person that knows the history of the building or the buildings, I guess you could say. And the young girl, unfortunately, didn't know a lot of information, so I'm not sure, to tell you the truth.
Oh, yeah. Well, I would be interested to know about that, because I smelled it. I'm very clair olfactory, you know, for better or worse.
That's called clear scent.
A lot of smells get to me.
That's called
clear scent. That's me.
Yeah, that was a good night. It was really good. But I have a lot of really cool stuff coming up too.
Well, this might be a time for you to chat about that.
Pardon me?
Yes.
Yes, what?
Sorry, you cut out for a sec there,
Maybe,
Leslie. So
I was just going to say, Shelly, maybe you'd like to talk about some of the upcoming
Right.
events that investigations you have on tap. You don't have to reveal the names or anything. I know you like to keep that secret, but maybe just some of the types of places.
Well, in April, we're doing an inn, a very old inn in Toronto. And then in May, I'm hoping, which it hasn't been confirmed yet, there's a gentleman that's actually part of my group whose friend's house is built near a church and a graveyard. And apparently there's a lot of activity happening in the house.
Oh.
So I hope to do that in May. And then in July, we're doing the Hyman House in Thornhill. And then,
Wow.
and let me think, then in September, we're doing a building in Aurora. Then in October, I'm looking at doing another inn where we can actually stay overnight there, which I think will be really cool. Yeah. So, yeah. So these are ones that I have that are confirmed. I'm working on a few other ones, but that's what I have confirmed right now.
That's fantastic, Shelly. Well, you know, I'm going to be on board as much as I can. I think it's a marvelous group, and I hope that that Wes and his partner Anna can join on one of these adventures too. They would really would really have a fabulous time. Yeah. Shelly, I have always wanted to ask you this. Are you also what they would call a medical intuitive? Do you have those kinds of skills where you can perceive if someone is having a physical issue or maybe even see it?
Yeah, well, I'm a Reiki master. So do you guys know what Reiki is?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so usually what I do is when I do spiritual readings on people, I usually request that they have Reiki done too, because usually what I do, when I do Reiki on a person, usually family members and loved ones, even angels, can step forward and they'll tell me if there's any issues that's happening with the person that I need to be aware of. Also too, before they come as a medium, I can actually do a body scan on a person, and it usually tells me ahead of time what issues are going on. So it's just confirmation for me as I do the Reiki on them, because then I pick it up right away and I tell them, right?
Excellent. Excellent. I just had the feeling that you were very intuitive in that respect. I'm not surprised at all.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I did. I had that feeling. Did you feel when you were growing up, Shelly, and obviously, as we say, the Irish, you had The Shining. Did you feel at any time that you were marginalized by that, or that you had to hide it or shut it down, or did you have accepting people around you?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why I shut it down is because I was afraid, but I was raised a Catholic, and with the Catholic Church, that was really frowned upon, right?
No kidding.
Yeah, so it wasn't really talked about it. Like, I didn't even know my family members had these abilities till I was many years older, and I started getting into it, and then my mom started discussing it, and my grandmother and stuff like that. But it wasn't talked about back then. It was like taboo. You know what I mean? So I didn't know any of my family members had the ability.
Right. Well, the Catholic thing was, you know, basically any kind of spirit interaction is of the devil. That it just doesn't happen. People who've crossed over, they go to heaven or they go to hell. Anything else is the devil tricking you. So, you know, it was a very limiting, narrow kind of belief system, and certainly frowned upon. I mean, my own grandmother told me, you know, you better not, you know, don't mention this to anybody else, you know.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much the party line, I think, for sure. Do you work with young people who are just discovering their psychic abilities, or have you thought about adding that to your
Are you talking about children?
retinue of things? Well, not really. Maybe not so much children. I'd say maybe starting with tweens, like 12, 13.
I've thought about it because throughout the years, I've had a number of people that had young children that were experiencing things, and they asked me if they could come to classes and stuff like that. I didn't really think it was really appropriate because they're dealing with their own stuff, especially being a teenager. And I thought that would be too much for them, dealing with their own stuff, right? So I said, they have to be at least 18 years of age. But it is something that I have thought about throughout the years of actually just starting classes of just young people, but I haven't done that yet.
I think just, with my therapist hat on for a moment, I think there would be a wonderful need for that. Because even just in the scope of a regular therapeutic practice, I run into a lot of very young people who are coming in with huge PSI skills, and don't really understand it, and have, yuppie parents who are completely removed from these kinds of things. I think it would be a wonderful thing to do that. At least I would have a great place to refer someone to if you ever decided to do that.
Yeah, it's definitely, yeah, for sure. It's definitely something I'm thinking about for sure for the future.
Yeah, yeah. Wes, do you have any? I'm sure you have about 100 more questions for Shelly. I feel like I've been hogging her. Go ahead.
Not at all. No,
I've been bogarting Shelly.
Well, we'll just call it episode 1. How about that?
Okay.
I do actually have a couple of questions. I think our viewing audience is going to have a pretty good idea at this point what you do. But then again, maybe you should just tell us what you do for your clients. I don't know if you want to call them clients, or what you do for folks.
Okay, so I do a number of different services. I teach mediumship development classes where they actually learn to develop their intuitive abilities, and they actually learn to communicate with spirit. Because I think when they start to develop that connection, then their intuitive abilities even speed up. They become a lot stronger. Mm-hmm. And I also, I do special events. The classes I usually do, well, right now I'm going to start to do them every other week. And the special events, I either do them once a month or every other month. And some of the special events I've done Akasha Records, I've done past lives, I've done between lives, I've done an angel series, I've done a crystal series. I've done a lot of things because I've been doing it a while. And also too, I'm an animal communicator. So I help people if their animals have behavioral issues or health issues. I'm also a Reiki master, like I said. So I teach Reiki attunements, and also I do Reiki treatments. I do spiritual readings on people. And basically what that means is I connect with loved ones that have passed. Could be angels, it could be guides, even pets that have passed. And I also can tell their past, present, and future, and also health issues, like I explained. I also do house clearings, where I go into people's homes if they have spiritual energy in their home that's disturbing the family, or it could either be good or bad, it doesn't matter. And I get rid of that for them. And I do paranormal investigations, where we go into buildings, it could be houses or even the land, that we communicate with the spirits, and then we cross them over at the end of the night.
Wow, I should have said, what don't you do?
She doesn't do windows.
No windows.
Yeah, I don't clean windows.
Well, we may ask you this again, Shelly, but could you tell our viewing audience how they can get in touch with you?
Okay, well, I have a number of different ways. My webpage is www.spiritualandparanormalconnections.com. I also have 2 Facebook pages, Spiritual and Paranormal Connections, and A&D, and I also have Spiritual, the and symbol, and Paranormal Connections. I also have an Instagram page. It's called Spiritual and Paranormal Connection. And I also have a Google business page called Spiritual and Paranormal Connections. Mm-hmm. And that's it right now.
That's enough.
I'm looking at doing YouTube too, like I explained, but I haven't got that far yet.
All right. Shelly, one thing I've been so wanting to participate in with you, and the timing hasn't worked out, but you do an angel drum ceremony, do you not, at different times of the year?
I have a lady that comes in and she does an angel drum meditation, and she's wonderful. Her name is Cheryl. She's really, really good. But I do sacred fires, and yes. One of my spirit guides, he's called Grey Owl. He is an Aboriginal shaman. He's very powerful. And whenever we do the sacred fires, I channel him, and he comes through. His energy is very strong, and we do drumming at the sacred fires.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm. I'm really looking forward to joining you at that event at some point in the future. Do you know at this point when the next sacred fire ceremony would be?
We're probably looking at either April or May. We don't do them in the summer because the land that we do it on, it's sacred ground.
Yeah.
And it's very wild, but there's a lot of bugs.
Oh, yeah.
So we try to do it before the bugs get really bad. So April and May, and then we'll do it again in the fall because the mosquitoes are so bad there. And I want people to be comfortable, right? I don't want to, you know, it drives crazy, right?
Correct. That's right. Well, we will enjoy attending that one in the spring. That's coming right up then.
Yeah, it is soon.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Wes, anything else that you wanted to ask Shelly before we get ready to?
Yeah, for sure. Shelly, of course you'd be afraid when you're 8 years old. That's normal. But what would you say to people, like if you were to say, here's some steps you can follow to exorcise fear or to work it out of your system? Because I know a collection of people, and Leslie does, and fear is the first stopping point from expanding their consciousness. So what would you say if you had to do a step-by-step here?
What I've told my students throughout the years, because a bunch of them come to me, they haven't experienced and they don't understand it. I always say to them, I call them my mediumship tools. And I think these are something that everyone should use whenever they're working with spirit, whatever form that is. That is where you do deep breathing, you open your chakras, you ground yourself, and protection. Very, very important. Okay, which I think if anyone's experiencing something that they don't understand, they could start reading different books. They could start coming to like a spiritual development class. It doesn't have to be mine, it could be anyone's. There's lots of stuff on YouTube that you can find out all kinds of information too. But I always say to people that people are usually afraid because they don't understand it. But I think if they educate themselves and they find a good teacher, I think they can help them get through all those roadblocks. Because I always say to people, some people focus just on the negative, but there's so many amazing positive experiences you can have with working with spirit. I say that's a very small part, but why not experience all the wonderful things out there that you could tap into, you know? So don't focus on that, just focus on the positive, because there's so many amazing things that you can experience.
Indeed, indeed. Shelly, have you ever experimented with remote viewing? Is that something that you've been intrigued by or tried in some way? I mean, I think it's Wes has studied, you know, at the I'm sorry, Wes, that Prime Institute where you studied. I forget.
Monroe Institute.
The Monroe Institute. But I think that it could be also a more organic, natural process where you find something that's missing or a missing person, or I guess it could work either way. But remote viewing, Wes, that's very structured, is it not?
Huge. I'm reading a book right now, which is kind of self-study by one of the more well-known people in the world, David Morehouse, who does this. He was military trained, and he actually comes to the city a couple of times a year.
Oh,
he likes
really?
it.
Wow.
His courses are really big money, and if I had it, I would take it. So it's a very structured protocol. You follow processes to the letter. I'm not quite there yet with this book, but I'm dedicated a huge chunk of time to it. So do you know about it then, Shelly, remote viewing?
I know about it, but I've never actually done anything with it. So I can't really say a lot on it, to tell you the truth. But it's something I wouldn't mind trying. I'm always open to trying new things.
I bet you've found lost objects, though. I bet you've even found lost people when you watch the news. Probably you have an impression of where that person is, you know.
Yeah, it's funny because I've done that a couple times because there was, I can't remember the case now. It was in Barrie anyways. And I think a young girl was murdered. And I think our group actually, as a collective, we actually all really focused on that. And when she was found, we were right. We were right. Yeah. That's really the only time that I've actually done that. But I've been asked before, but you know what? I don't know if I really want to get into that because you probably would see some horrific things, right?
Indeed, you know, I mean, every once in a while, as a hypnotherapist, I can be called in to work with the police in this, not in the sense of anything really metaphysical, but there may be a witness um, who saw something they don't even know that they saw, a license plate number, a piece of clothing, so that's, I would be, hypnotizing the witness to the occasion. But even within that framework, even taking someone to an occasion and even experiencing the energy of a violent crime,
Oh yeah.
even tangentially, it's incredibly disturbing and upsetting. And I'm with you. I don't know if I could do that. I mean, I couldn't be Allison from Medium, the TV show.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I couldn't do that either. No.
Well, we've had a dowser on the show more than once who, unbeknownst to at least me, was able to use dowsing to locate missing people.
Oh, yes.
And remote viewing can work that way, but it's just the oddest thing. It puts you in touch with what they call the matrix field, or the universal unconsciousness, if you will. And you can access anything there through space and time.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So you go into the Akasha, as it were. You go into the big all that is, where all the information is accessible and free floating.
Absolutely, that's another name for it, the record, the Akashic record. So however one likes to call it, you're given a number of coordinates, 8 numbers actually, and things sort of flow from there in the weirdest way, as I'm learning. But I've done it with another fellow here that I know. He took a small group under his wing, and we did quite well. The one thing you have to be aware of, and maybe you do too, Shelly, is false impressions that you make up. You know what I mean? Like you see a circle and you say, well, that's a wheel. So you're done if you do that.
Yeah.
Shelly, do you have a type of visual language that maybe your spirit guide uses with you, where you do see something? This is what see something that symbolizes to you, a mother or an estrangement. It could be anything, but it's a symbolic language that maybe takes things from your own life that you and your spirit guide share.
Well, one of my main gifts is I'm a clairvoyant, which means I clear see. So I use my third eye here. And when I tap in, I can see anything from, it could be color, it could be energy, it could be a picture, it could be a word, it could be a symbol. And I actually see spirits standing in front of me. I can tell you what they look like, how old they are, male, female, animal, whatever. That's my strongest ability. I have 4 other abilities after that, but every person, which is true, which I've told my students throughout the years, everyone always has one ability that's stronger than the rest. Some people only have one ability, but over time, if you develop your intuitive abilities, you can actually develop more than one, but it depends on the person too. But that's my strongest ability.
Wow.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Well, we still have a chunk of time, folks. I'm just looking at the clock, 5 minutes or so. We can either use that any way you wish, Shelly, or Leslie probably has some more questions. I do. So is there something that has gone unsaid?
I have so many experiences we haven't even touched on.
Oh, let's hear about another experience, Shelly. I'm sorry. I meant to. We just have to come back for part 2. That's all.
That's
okay. That's it.
Okay. Let me see. What can I tell you? Okay, I'll tell you this one. This one blows me away. This is a past life. And when you develop your intuitive abilities, you can either do past life regression, you can do it through meditation, or if you develop your intuitive abilities, you can learn it through dreams and also memories, right? Certain memories that float through. And I went to bed this one night, and I remember waking up spiritually, not my physical eyes. And I was kneeling on the ground, and I noticed I was wearing sandals, and I had a robe on, and I had a beard and dark hair. And I remember looking up, and there was a man standing in front of me. He had sandals on and a robe, but I did not look any farther because I was told I shouldn't. And I remember hearing off into the distance a lot of people yelling and screaming, saying, "Crucify, crucify, crucify," right? And I remember turning to this man in front of me and saying we have to go. They're coming. And he said, no. And then the people got closer and closer and closer and louder and louder. And I was starting to get afraid. And I said, we have to go. They're almost here. We have to go. He said, no, I can't go. I am meant to be here. And at that moment, I was probably between dreaming and coming back to my body. I literally heard hundreds of people running up my stairs, yelling and screaming. They got to my bedroom door, which I always have an angel there for protection. And at that moment, I came back into my body. My whole body lit up, and because I knew there was a lot of activity around. And at that moment, I came back and I realized what it was. That was Jesus when he was in the garden before they came to crucify him. And I was the apostle, Simon Peter. And that literally blew me away. I couldn't believe it. It was so real. I'm telling you, I could literally feel and hear them running up my stairs. There was so many people, but they couldn't go any farther than my bedroom door because they were stopped. But that's when I came back into my body. It was freaky. Really freaky.
Wow. Well, yeah. That's what we call a bleed through. I mean, that was a complete sequence that you got there, and I have no doubt that you experienced that. In fact, you know, there are a lot of people that come through my door with biblical experiences. I guess that must have been another time where many enlightened people were trying to find their way, or trying to bring the consciousness to a higher level after so much demagoguery, after so much paganism, and, you know, complex myth-based systems, you know, and of course, possibly even, you know, honoring beings that were not even gods, that were simply more advanced beings who, you know, convinced us to worship them, you know, which I think is more likely. And I think those people are still resisting today, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
They're still resisting.
You want me to tell another story?
Yeah. We still got 3-4 minutes, and then we're going to do some. Okay. And then we'll do some housekeeping before we leave.
Okay, so we did an investigation at the Cornwall jail, and this was probably 2 or 3 years ago. And I took a group of people into the jail there. And of course, there was a lot of activity. And it was funny. There was one section where it was solitary confinement section. And I walked ahead first. And the cell, as you turn the corner, I got a really bad feeling that there was a very evil entity in there. And there was one male and the rest of the group was all women. And I said to the girls, I said, no, don't go near this cell. I said, because the spirit that's in here, he was very cruel to women, like he tortured them and everything else. I said, the energy's not good here, just stay away from there. So everybody kind of backed up and went around to the other cells farther ahead. And the one male student, I guess he thought he'd try the envelope. So he stuck his hand into the cell. And when he did that, his arm got really, really, really cold. And there was like a plasmic material that I guess went on his arm. So it scared him. He pulled his arm out and he started shaking his arm like this. And I ran over, what's going on? He said, well, I had my arm in the cell. I said, well, I told you guys not to go near it. Anyways, because I'm a Reiki master, I did Reiki on his hand like this right away. And his hand was freezing. It was like ice.
Yeah.
And then I brought some heat back into his arm, but that freaked him out because the energy in that cell there was not good, and it was very malicious. And I guess he thought he'd try it, and he experienced it, right? And after that, everybody kind of whacked, woo, way back. Nobody went near that cell. Yeah. So, yeah.
That is amazing.
And another thing in the Cornwall jail, it was weird because whenever I go into buildings, Leslie and Wes, I don't find out any information ahead of time because I want to see what the mediums can pick up, right? And also myself. And it was funny because when we were going through the jail, we walked past this one part and I could hear screaming, right? Like a lot of like anguish and crying and everything else. And what I was getting is there was a hole in the floor and they used to put them upside down into this hole. And that's where they used to keep them if they misbehaved, right? Whoa. And it freaked me out. The energy was intense. And I remember at the end of the night, because we always congregate with the coordinator or the staff person there, and we tell them what we pick up and they usually confirm for us. And he said to me, yes, he said, that's where we used to put them down the hole when they were misbehaving. And they used to stay down there sometimes 24, 48 hours. And all they had on was their underwear, and they were putting this hole upside down. And you could literally hear them screaming as we're walking by this part, right? It's like, oh my God. Yeah, it was pretty intense. It was really intense.
Wow.
Wow. Well, that's an interesting note to end on.
Well, so I guess there will be a musical forthcoming for that.
A couple, Leslie, a couple.
Shelly, God bless you. Thank you so much for joining us on Contact TV. And I urge everyone, if they want any kind of metaphysical service, or they just want to talk or contact you and maybe take a wonderful class, please do get in touch with Shelly McConville. We'll be posting all of the contact information as well. And Shelly, we'll have you on again real soon to talk about more of your fantastic adventures. Great. And just surrounding you with white light and thanking you for all that you do.
Thank you. Thank
you, Shelly.
Thank you, Shelly. And we'll be back to you soon. I'll let you know where this ends up. And thanks again. Have a great night.
Thank you, Shelly. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Thank you for watching Contact TV.
We would like to thank our generous sponsors: Lightwork Hypnosis, UFOria and the UFOria Chronicles, Earth Mystery News, Conspiracy Culture Books, MUFON Canada, Free Experiencers, the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, and Variety Store Productions.
For guest booking information, please email Wes Roberts at producer@contacttv.ca. And don't forget to join us on Facebook and Twitter.